Gina Kim stood in the long line of new recruits at the Galactic Defense Academy. She looked up at the massive doors ahead of her and felt very small. The academy was built on New Sol Station, floating in space, far from Earth. The building was huge and made of white metal that gleamed under the bright lights. Around her, other recruits talked in excited voices. Most of them were much bigger than Gina. The Velkari warriors were almost 3 meters tall with thick arms and gray skin. Their voices were deep and loud. The Threks looked like giant insects with 4 arms and shiny black shells. They clicked when they spoke to each other. Even the other humans seemed to tower over Gina. She was only 1.5 meters tall, much shorter than most people her age. Her black hair was cut short and neat, and she wore the same gray uniform as everyone else. But on her small body, the uniform looked too big. "Next," called the registration officer. Gina stepped forward to the desk. The officer was a tall human, man with kind eyes. "Name?" he asked. "Gina Kim," she said in a clear voice. The officer looked at his screen and then looked at Gina. He frowned a little. "Are you sure you are in the right place? This is the combat training program, not communications." Gina felt her face get hot with anger. "I am in the right place. I passed all the tests." The officer looked at his screen again. "Yes, you did pass, but your scores were just barely enough. Are you sure you want combat training? We have other programs that might be better for someone of your size." "I want combat training," Gina said firmly. The officer gave her a small card with her room number and schedule. "Good luck," he said, but he did not sound like he believed she would need it. Gina walked to the dormitory building. Her room was small with 2 beds, 2 desks, and 2 lockers. One bed already had someone's things on it. A tall human girl with long brown hair was sitting on that bed reading a tablet. "Hello," Gina said. "I am Gina. I think we are roommates." The girl looked up. She was pretty with bright eyes. "I am so young. You look very young. Are you sure you are old enough to be here?" "I am 18, Gina said. "Same as everyone else." "So young." Looked at Gina from head to toe. "Well, you are certainly small. What made you think you could be a warrior?" Gina put her bag on the empty bed. "I have wanted to protect people since I was little. My family died in the hegemony attack on Busan Colony. I was the only one who survived." So Young's face softened a little. "I am sorry. That must have been hard." "It was, but it made me strong. I will not let other families die like mine did." The next morning, all the new recruits gathered in the main training hall. Instructor Bae Hyun stood at the front. He was a big human man with scars on his arms and a serious face. Behind him stood other instructors from different alien races. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy," Instructor Bae Hyun said in a loud voice. "You are here because you think you can protect the galaxy. Most of you are wrong. Most of you will quit before the month is over." He walked between the rows of recruits. His eyes stopped on Gina for a long moment. "Some of you look like you should quit right now. Being a defender is not a game. It is not about wanting to help people. It is about being strong enough to face monsters that want to kill you." A huge Velkari recruit named Thokran laughed. "Look at that tiny human girl. She looks like a child playing dress-up." Other recruits turned to look at Gina. Some of them smiled. Some of them whispered to their friends. Gina felt her face turn red, but she did not look down. "What is your name, recruit?" Instructor Bae Hyun asked her. "Gina Kim, sir." "And why are you here, Gina Kim?" "To become a defender, sir. To protect innocent people." Thokran laughed again. "How can something so small protect anyone? You could not even protect a pet from a house cat." Some of the other Velkari recruits joined in the laughter. A few humans smiled, too. Gina saw So Young shake her head like she was embarrassed. "Quiet," Instructor Bae Hyun said. The laughter stopped. "We will see who can protect what. Everyone pick up a training weapon from the rack." The weapons were heavy metal sticks, used for practice fighting. They were made for beings the size of Valkyrie or large humans. When Gina picked one up, she had to use both hands. The weight made her arms shake a little. "Partner up," Instructor Bae Hyun ordered. "We will see what you can do." Most recruits quickly found partners of similar size. Thokran pointed at Gina. "I will take the little sparrow. This should be fun." Gina gripped her training weapon tighter. Thokran was 3 times her size and probably 10 times stronger. His weapon looked like a small stick in his massive hands. "Begin," the instructor said. Thokran swung his weapon slowly, like he was playing with a child. Gina dodged to the side and tried to hit his leg. Her weapon bounced off his thick skin without doing any damage. "Too slow, little sparrow," Thokran said. He knocked Gina's weapon out of her hands with an easy swing. Gina rolled away and grabbed her weapon again. She was breathing hard already. Thokran was not even trying, and she could barely keep up. The practice fight ended quickly. Gina was on the ground, and Thokran was standing over her looking bored. "As expected," he said. "Maybe try the cooking program next time." After training, Gina sat alone in the dining hall. Her body hurt all over and she had bruises on her arms. Other recruits sat together in groups, talking and laughing. No one invited her to sit with them. A quiet human boy with glasses sat down across from her. His name tag said Woo Jin. "That was a hard first day," he said. "I have had worse days." Gina replied, "I saw you get back up every time Thokran knocked you down. Most people would have stayed down after the 3rd time." Gina looked at him. Woo Jin was not much bigger than her, but he was in the engineering program, not combat training. "Getting knocked down does not matter," she said. "Staying down does." Woo Jin smiled. "My grandfather used to say something like that. He was a soldier, too." They ate their dinner in comfortable silence. When they were done, Woo Jin said, "The training weapons are too big for you." "I noticed," Gina said with a small smile. "I work in the equipment lab. Maybe I can help make something that fits you better. It would not be cheating, just making the tools fit the user." Gina looked at him with surprise. "Why would you help me?" "Because everyone else has already decided you will fail. I like to root for the underdog." That night, Gina lay in her small bed listening to So Young sleep. Through the window, she could see the stars. Somewhere out there, families were in danger. Children were afraid, and everyone thought she was too small to help them. But Gina had a secret that even she did not fully understand yet. Sometimes, when she was very angry or very scared, strange things happened around her. Lights would flicker. Electronics would act weird. Once, when bullies cornered her as a child, one of them had been thrown backward by invisible force. She had always thought it was just luck or coincidence, but deep inside, she felt something stirring. Something that whispered she was more than she appeared to be. Tomorrow would bring more training, more laughter, and more people telling her she did not belong. But Gina Kim had survived worse things than mockery. She would prove them all wrong, even if she did not yet know how. The stars outside seemed to shimmer, as if they were waiting for something to begin. 3 months had passed since Gina arrived at the academy. She had worked harder than anyone else, training every morning before classes and every evening after dinner. Woo Jin had secretly helped her modify training equipment to fit her small size. With his help, she was finally keeping up with the other recruits, but she was still the target of jokes and cruel comments. Thokran and his Valkyrie friends called her Little Sparrow every day. Even some humans thought she was wasting her time. Only Woo Jin believed in her. One morning, Instructor Bae Hyun made an announcement that changed everything. "Congratulations, recruits. You have survived basic training. Now you will get real experience. the exploration ship Soul's Pride needs trainees for a mission to unexplored space. Only the top students will be chosen. Gina felt her heart beat faster. This was her chance to prove herself on a real mission. The instructor read the list of chosen recruits. Thokran, Klixith, Dongho, Hyunwoo, Yoonji, So-young. He paused. And Gina Kim. Thokran made a disgusted sound. Why is the little sparrow coming? She will just get in the way. I need a backup communications specialist, the instructor said. Gina scored highest on the language tests. So-young patted Gina on the shoulder. At least you will be safe doing communications work. Leave the fighting to people who can actually fight. 2 days later, they boarded the Soul's Pride. The ship was huge and beautiful, with white metal walls and blue lights. Captain Lee was a serious man with gray hair who had fought in many battles. The crew included humans and several alien species. Working together, Gina was given a small room near the communications center. Her job was to help the main communications officer and translate alien languages. It was not the exciting combat role she had dreamed of, but she was grateful to be on a real mission. The Soul's Pride flew through hyperspace for 5 days before reaching Sector Gamma 7. This part of space had never been explored before. The stars looked different here, older somehow. Captain, called Science Officer Tae-min from his station, I am detecting something strange. There is a ship out there. Captain Lee looked at the main screen. Show me. A dark shape appeared on the screen. It was clearly a spaceship, but unlike anything they had ever seen. The design was smooth and organic, like it had been grown instead of built. Strange symbols covered its hull. Life signs? Captain Lee asked. None that I can detect, Tae-min replied. The ship appears to be dead. It has been drifting here for a very long time. How long? According to the metal decay, maybe thousands of years, possibly much longer. Captain Lee made his decision. We board it. Standard exploration protocol. Gorvak, take a team. Gorvak was the ship's security chief, a massive Velkari with battle scars covering his arms. Who do you want on the team, Captain? Take Hyunwoo and Yoonji. They know how to handle surprises. And take the communications girl in case we need to translate something. The little human? Gorvak asked. She will slow us down. Gina scored higher on alien languages than anyone else, Captain Lee said firmly. Take her. An hour later, Gina found herself wearing a spacesuit and holding a translation device. The boarding party consisted of herself, Gorvak, and 2 human Marines named Hyunwoo and Yoonji. Both Marines were big and experienced. They carried heavy weapons and looked like they could handle anything. The alien ship was even stranger inside than outside. The corridors were narrow and low, clearly built for beings smaller than humans. Gorvak had to crouch to move through the passages. Hyunwoo and Yoonji looked uncomfortable in the tight spaces, but Gina moved easily through the corridors. For once, her small size was an advantage. She could walk normally while the others struggled. The design is very advanced, she said, looking at the smooth walls. These symbols are not in any database I know. Can you read them? Yoonji asked. Some of them. They seem to be directions. This way leads to what might be a control room. They followed Gina through the winding passages. Emergency lights flickered on as they moved, showing that the ship still had some power after all these years. The control room was a circular chamber with strange chairs and control panels. Everything was sized for beings about Gina's height. In the center of the room was a sealed door marked with warning symbols. Those symbols, Gina said, studying them carefully. They mean danger. And something else. Something about sleeping? Gorvak scanned the door with his equipment. There is something alive behind this door. Very much alive. We should report back to the captain, Hyunwoo said. But before anyone could move, The door began to open by itself. Ancient mechanisms groaned and hissed. Cold air flowed out of the chamber, carrying a strange smell like flowers and metal. "Fall back," Gorvak ordered, but Gina stepped forward instead. Something was calling to her, a voice she could not hear with her ears but felt in her mind. "Wait," she said. "It knows we are here." The chamber beyond the door was dark except for a soft blue glow in the center. As their lights illuminated the space, they saw something that made them all freeze. A creature floated in the blue light. It looked like a mass of dark energy with countless eyes scattered across its surface. The eyes were all different sizes and colors, and they moved independently of each other. The creature was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "What is that thing?" Yunji whispered. The creature began to change shape. The dark energy swirled and formed something almost like a face. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Who disturbs the long sleep?" The words were in an ancient language, but somehow Gina understood them perfectly. She also knew that the others heard only strange sounds. "It is asking who we are," she translated. Gorvak raised his weapon, but the creature's attention turned to him. The massive Velkari warrior suddenly fell to his knees, his face twisted in pain. His weapon clattered to the floor. "Do not threaten," the creature said. "I have slept long. I am weak, but not weak enough to fear your toys." Hyunwoo and Yunji also fell to their knees, clutching their heads. Only Gina remained standing. The creature's countless eyes focused on her. For a long moment, they studied each other in silence. Then the creature's form became very still. "Impossible," it whispered. Gina felt something stirring inside her chest, like a warm light growing brighter. "What do you see?" she asked in the ancient language. The creature's eyes widened. Some of them began to glow brighter. "You speak the first tongue, but that cannot be. They all fled. They all chose exile over duty. They sealed themselves and hid among the lesser species." "I do not understand," Gina said. "Look at me, child of the first. Look at me and remember what you are." The creature's glow grew brighter. Gina felt the warm light in her chest respond. Suddenly, her vision changed. She could see things that were not there before. She could see energy flowing through the ship, through space, through everything, and she could see what the creature truly was, not a monster or an alien, but something ancient and powerful that had once ruled among the stars. "Kinslayer," the creature said in a voice full of wonder and fear. "The blood of the Kinslayers still flows, after all this time." "What does that mean?" Gina asked. But before the creature could answer, Gorvak stirred. "We need to get back to the ship," he gasped. "Captain needs to know about this." The creature turned its attention away from Gina, and the others could move again. Hyunwoo and Yunji stumbled to their feet, looking pale and shaken. "It let us go," Hyunwoo said. "Why did it let us go?" Gina looked back at the creature as they left the chamber. It was watching her with what she somehow knew was curiosity and hope. "I think," she said quietly, "it was waiting for someone like me." As they returned to the soul's pride, Gina could not stop thinking about the creature's words. Kinslayer, the first. What did it mean? And why did she understand a language she had never heard before? Deep inside her chest, the warm light continued to glow. For the first time in her life, Gina felt like she was exactly where she belonged. But she also felt afraid. The creature had called her something she did not understand. And from the way it had spoken, she was not sure she wanted to understand. Behind them, in the ancient ship, the creature settled back into its long wait. But now it was no longer sleeping. Now it was planning. The small human girl was the sign it had waited for. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would remember why the first ones had been feared across the stars. After returning from the alien ship, Gina felt strange. Her head hurt, and she could not stop thinking about the creature's words. She went to the medical bay to see Dr. Su-jin. "I feel dizzy," Gina told the doctor. "And I keep hearing voices that are not there." Dr. Su-jin was a kind woman with gentle hands. She ran several medical scans on Gina. When the results appeared on her screen, her face went pale. "This cannot be right," she whispered. "What is wrong?" Gina asked. "Your brain scans show activity in areas that should not exist in humans. And your blood. There are things in your blood that I have never seen before." Dr. Su-jin ran the tests again. The results were the same. "Gina, have you ever had unusual experiences? Things that could not be explained?" Gina thought about the flickering lights when she was angry, the electronics that stopped working around her when she was scared, the bully who had been thrown backward by invisible force. "Sometimes strange things happen near me," she admitted. Dr. Su-jin saved all the test results. "I need to show these to the captain. Your cellular structure is different from normal humans. It is like you were built for something else." Meanwhile, the creature had made itself comfortable in the cargo bay of Soul's Pride. It refused to leave the ship, but it also did not threaten anyone. It simply waited. Captain Lee tried to communicate with it, but the creature would only speak to Gina. When she translated, the creature talked about old wars and the return of the small gods. Its words made no sense to anyone. "Ask it what it wants," Captain Lee ordered. Gina spoke to the creature in the ancient language. Its many eyes focused on her with what looked like sadness. "I want to go home," it said. "But home is gone. My people are gone. I am the last of the Watchers." "It says it wants to go home, but its home no longer exists," Gina translated. "Then why did it wake up?" Captain Lee asked. The creature's form shifted. "Because the blood calls to blood. Because the children of the first are awakening. Because the galaxy will need them again." When Gina translated this, Captain Lee contacted Galactic Command immediately. Within hours, experts from across human space were studying the recordings and data. Professor Han Sol was the galaxy's top expert on ancient civilizations. He arrived on Soul's Pride 3 days later, bringing with him old books and data files that few people had ever seen. "The creature mentioned kinslayers," he said to Gina. "That word appears in only the oldest records. Archaeological sites on dead worlds sometimes have symbols that mention them." He showed Gina pictures of ancient ruins. These civilizations were destroyed long before humans left Earth. The few records that survived speak of beings called the Primarchs. They were small in size, but had power that could reshape reality. "Small in size?" Gina asked. "Yes. Most descriptions say they were no bigger than children, but they could control energy, matter, even time itself. Other species called them the small gods." Professor Han Sol opened an old file. According to legend, the Primarchs fought a great war against something called the Dark. They won, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Many worlds were destroyed. Entire species went extinct. "What happened to the Primarchs?" Captain Lee asked. "They vanished. Some records suggest they chose exile. They scattered across the galaxy and hid among lesser species, sealing away their power so it could never cause such destruction again." That night, Gina sat alone with the creature in the cargo bay. The other crew members were afraid to get too close to it, but Gina felt safe in its presence. "You know what I am, don't you?" she asked. The creature's eyes glowed softly. "You are what your people once were before they chose to forget, before they chose to become small and weak and safe." "My people? You mean humans?" "Humans are not from the world you call Earth," the creature said. "Your ancestors came from the stars. They were the greatest of the Primarchs, the ones other species feared most. They were called the kinslayers because they could destroy their own kind when necessary." Gina felt cold. "Are you saying humans are aliens?" I am saying humans are gods who chose to be mortal. Your ancestors sealed their power and their memories. They wanted their children to grow up normal and peaceful. But I am not normal, Gina said. No. Sometimes the seal cracks. Sometimes the old blood runs true. You carry the heritage of beings who once ruled the galaxy with thought alone. The creature moved closer to her. Do you want to see what you truly are? Gina hesitated. Part of her was terrified, but a bigger part of her needed to know. Show me, she whispered. The creature extended a tendril of dark energy toward her. When it touched her forehead, Gina's mind exploded with visions. She saw herself as she truly was. Not a small human girl, but something vast and powerful. She saw the ancient war, with beings like her fighting across the stars. She saw worlds burning and civilizations fleeing in terror. She saw why her ancestors had chosen exile. The power was too great, too destructive. In the wrong hands, it could end all life in the galaxy. This is why they hid, the creature explained. This is why they chose to forget. Because power without wisdom leads only to death. When the visions ended, Gina was crying. I don't want this power. I just wanted to protect people. And that, the creature said gently, is exactly why you should have it. Your ancestors made the same choice. They used their power to protect, not to conquer. Over the next few days, Gina began to notice changes in how the crew treated her. Even Thokran, who had mocked her for months, now watched her with something like fear. The other aliens whispered when she passed. They sense what you are becoming, the creature told her. Their racial memories remember the small gods. They remember the terror and the awe. But with knowledge came responsibility. Gina realized that she was not the only one. If the creature was right, there were others like her scattered among humanity, others who carried the blood of the Primarchs. What happens now? She asked the creature. Now you choose, it replied. You can seal the power away again, live as a normal human, and hope the galaxy never needs the small gods to return. Or you accept what you are. You learn to use the power wisely, and you prepare for what is coming. What is coming? The creature's many eyes looked toward the stars beyond the ship's hull. The dark did not die in the ancient war. It only slept, and it is beginning to stir. The galaxy will need its protectors again. Gina looked at her small hands. They looked so ordinary, so harmless. But she could feel the power sleeping inside her, waiting to be awakened. If I accept this, she said, will I still be me? You will be more than you ever imagined you could be. But yes, you will still be Gina Kim, the girl who wanted to protect people. That will never change. Gina made her decision that night, alone in her small room. She would accept her heritage. She would learn to use the power that her ancestors had sealed away, but she would use it wisely. She would use it to protect the innocent, just as she had always dreamed. The next morning she woke up feeling different, stronger. The warm light in her chest was brighter now, and she could feel it responding to her emotions. The creature was right. She was no longer just human. She was something much more dangerous and much more wonderful. The changes started small. Gina would walk past a broken light panel, and it would suddenly start working again. When she was frustrated during language studies, her tablet would translate alien texts faster than its programming should allow. At first, she thought these were coincidences, but the creature in the cargo bay knew better. Your power is awakening naturally, it told her during one of their private conversations. But natural awakening is slow and uncontrolled. I can teach you to guide it properly. Is it safe? Gina asked. Learning to control power is always safer than letting it control you. The creature became her secret teacher. Every night after her regular duties, Gina would go to the cargo bay for lessons. The creature showed her how to feel the energy that flowed through all things. how to touch it without being burned by it. Power is like water, the creature explained. Try to grab it with force, and it will slip through your fingers. Guide it gently, and it will go where you need it to go. Gina's first real success came 2 weeks later. During a training session, with Wu Jin in the engineering workshop, she accidentally dropped a heavy tool on her foot. Instead of crying out in pain, she instinctively reached for the warm energy inside her chest. The pain disappeared instantly. When she removed her boot, there was no injury at all. "How did you do that?" Wu Jin asked, staring at her foot. I don't know," Gina lied, but she did know. She had used her power to heal herself. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying. The creature taught her other things too. How to move objects without touching them, how to see in complete darkness, how to understand any language just by hearing a few words. "These are simple skills," the creature said. "Child's play compared to what your ancestors could do. They could stop time. They could create new stars. They could travel between dimensions." "I don't want that much power," Gina said. "Good. Want too much power, and power will consume you. This is why your ancestors chose exile." But Gina's growing abilities could not stay hidden forever. During a routine drill, Thokren cornered her in an empty corridor. "You think you are special, little sparrow," the big Velkari said. "You think the captain likes you because you can talk to that monster. But I know what you really are. You are still weak." He grabbed Gina's arm hard enough to leave bruises. "Maybe I should teach you your place." Gina felt anger rise inside her. The warm energy in her chest flared like a star. "Let go of me," she said quietly. Thokren laughed. "Or what? You will call for help?" "Let go," Gina repeated. This time, something in her voice made Thokren hesitate. Her eyes seemed to glow with their own light. The air around them grew cold. Suddenly, Thokren found himself flying backward through the air. He slammed into the corridor wall hard enough to dent the metal. When he tried to get up, invisible force held him pinned against the wall. "I said let go," Gina said. She was not shouting, but her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. Other crew members heard the noise and came running. They found Thokren stuck to the wall like he was glued there, and Gina standing calmly in the middle of the corridor. "What happened here?" Captain Lee demanded. "I fell," Thokren said quickly. He did not look at Gina. "Clumsy accident." But Captain Lee was not stupid. He had seen the security footage from the alien ship. He knew Gina was different. After that incident, word spread through the ship. The crew began to treat Gina with a mixture of respect and fear. Even the alien crew members, who had their own legends about the small gods, gave her more space. Wu Jin was the only one who still treated her the same way. "You could have really hurt him," he said during their next engineering session. "I didn't want to hurt him," Gina replied. "I just wanted him to stop." "But you could have, couldn't you? If you had wanted to." Gina looked at her hands. "Yes, I think I could have." It was a frightening thought. She was still learning to control her power, and already it was stronger than anything the ship's weapons could produce. The creature continued her training, but now the lessons were different. Instead of teaching her new abilities, it taught her restraint. "Power without control is destruction," it repeated again and again. "Your ancestors learned this lesson the hard way. Many worlds died before they understood." "How do I know when it's right to use power?" Gina asked. "You will know. But remember this. Every time you use power to solve a problem, you make it easier to use power to solve the next problem. Soon, power becomes your first choice instead of your last choice. Is that bad? It is how gods become tyrants." Gina's abilities continued to grow. She could now move through the ship without making any sound. She could make herself invisible to electronic sensors. She could even phase through solid walls for a few seconds at a time. But the most frightening ability was her effect on other people. When she was angry or afraid, crew members near her would feel the same emotions. When she was calm and peaceful, others became calm too. "I'm influencing their minds without meaning to," she told the creature. "Yes, this is why the other species feared your kind. A Primarch in emotional distress could drive entire populations insane. A Primarch filled with rage could turn peaceful beings into warriors. How do I stop it? Control begins with awareness. Know your emotions, understand them, master them. Only then can you keep them from affecting others." The lessons became harder. The creature would create illusions that made Gina angry or afraid, then teach her to control her reactions. It was exhausting work, but necessary. "Why are you helping me?" Gina asked one day. "Because I failed to help the last one," the creature replied sadly. "The last one?" "Long ago, I was assigned to watch over a young Primarch who was awakening to her power. She was brave and kind, much like you, but she was impatient. She wanted to use her abilities to help people immediately." The creature's form grew darker. "I let her awaken too quickly. I did not teach her proper control. When the dark came to her world, she tried to fight it alone. What happened? She destroyed 3 solar systems trying to stop a single enemy. Billions died because of my failure to teach her patience." Gina felt cold. "Could that happen to me?" "It could happen to anyone with your power. This is why the training must be slow. This is why control matters more than strength." That night, Gina looked out at the stars and thought about the billions of lives in the galaxy. Families like the one she had lost, children who needed protection, people who had never heard of Primarchs or small gods or ancient wars. They were all depending on her to be wise, to be careful, to never let power make her forget that every life was precious. It was a heavy responsibility for someone who had been mocked for her size just a few months ago. But as she felt the warm energy flowing through her body, Gina knew she was ready to accept it. She would be strong enough to protect the innocent, but she would be wise enough to know when protection became destruction. The galaxy might need the small gods to return, but it needed them to return as protectors, not conquerors. Gina would make sure she remembered the difference. Everything changed when the distress signal arrived. Gina was in the cargo bay practicing with the creature when Captain Lee's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All hands to stations. We have received an emergency signal from New Busan Colony. They are under attack by hegemony forces. New Busan." Gina felt her heart stop. That was where her family had lived before they moved to the colony where they died. She still had friends there. The creature sensed her distress. "Control your emotions," it warned. "Do not let fear cloud your judgment." But Gina was already running toward the bridge. She arrived just as Captain Lee was reviewing the distress message. Governor Sang-ho appeared on the main screen. He was a kind man who had helped her family when they first arrived at New Busan. Now his face was filled with terror. "This is an emergency broadcast," he said. "Hegemony forces have invaded our system, but these are not normal troops. They have brought creatures with them, monsters that cannot be killed by normal weapons." The image shook as explosions rocked the government building. "The creatures feed on fear and grow stronger when we fight them. They are hunting civilians. Our defenses are failing. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help." The message ended. Captain Lee stared at the blank screen. "Sir," Communications Officer Min-ho said, "Galactic Command is ordering us to return to base immediately. They say a single exploration ship cannot fight hegemony battle forces." "How far are we from New Busan?" Captain Lee asked. 6 hours at maximum speed," Pilot Da-young replied. Captain Lee was quiet for a long moment. Then he made his decision. "Set course for New Busan. Maximum speed." "Sir, our orders are to return to base with our discoveries intact," Captain Lee said firmly. I consider the safety of human colonies to be part of that mission. The crew exchanged glances. Everyone knew this was not what Command wanted, but no one argued. 6 hours later, Seoul's Pride dropped out of hyperspace near New Busan. The scene that greeted them was horrifying. 3 hegemony warships hung in orbit around the planet. They were massive vessels, each one larger than Seoul's Pride. But the ships were not the worst part. The worst part was the creatures. What are those things? Yoonji whispered. On the main screen, they could see dark shapes moving across the planet's surface. The creatures were enormous, some as big as buildings. They moved like liquid shadow, flowing across the landscape and leaving destruction in their wake. Those are devourers, Science Officer Tae-min said in a shaky voice. I have read about them in classified reports. The hegemony created them as weapons. They feed on fear and pain. The more terror they cause, the stronger they become. How? Do we fight them? Captain Lee asked. According to the reports, we don't. Devourers are immune to energy weapons. They adapt to physical attacks. They regenerate from almost any damage. Gina watched the monsters destroying her friend's world and felt something crack inside her chest. The warm energy that she had been learning to control began to burn like fire. There has to be a way, she said. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. They had all heard rumors about her abilities, but this was the first time she had spoken. Up during a military briefing. What do you suggest? Captain Lee asked. Gina looked at the creatures on the screen. Let me go down there. Absolutely not, Gorvak said immediately. You are not a soldier. You would be killed instantly. Those things feed on fear, Gina said. But what if someone was not afraid of them? The creature in the cargo bay had taught her about fear. It was just another emotion, something that could be controlled and overcome. And Gina was no longer afraid of much of anything. It's suicide, So Young said. Even if you were not afraid, they would still tear you apart. But Captain Lee was looking at Gina with new understanding. You think your abilities could hurt them? I think my abilities could do something normal. Weapons cannot. Sir, Tae-min interrupted. The largest devourer has cornered a group of civilians in the main city, including children. On the screen, they could see people running through the streets while a building-sized monster chased them. The creature moved slowly, as if it were playing with its prey. We have to do something, Hyunwoo said. Captain Lee made his decision. Take us into the atmosphere. All weapons ready, even if they will not work. At least we can distract those things. But as Seoul's Pride entered the planet's atmosphere, Gina felt the creature in the cargo bay calling to her. She ran from the bridge and found it waiting for her. The time has come, it said. You must choose now. Use your power to save these people, or watch them die while you stay safe. But you said I was not ready. You said I needed more training. Training is never complete. There is always more to learn, but sometimes events force choices before we are ready to make them. Through the ship's hull, Gina could feel the terror of the people below. Thousands of innocent lives hanging by a thread. If I use my full power, what will happen? You will save these people, but you will also reveal what you are to the entire galaxy. There will be no going back to being a normal human girl. And if I don't, then you will remain safe and hidden while innocents die. The choice is yours. Gina closed her eyes and felt the warm energy inside her chest. It was so much stronger now than when she first felt it months ago. Strong enough to reshape matter. Strong enough to bend reality. Strong enough to terrify monsters that were supposed to be fearless. Teach me how to use it, she said. There is no time to teach. You must trust your instincts. But remember, power used in anger becomes destruction. Power used in love becomes protection. Gina ran back to the bridge. On the main screen, the A Largest devourer was closing in on the group of trapped civilians. Children were crying. Parents were trying to shield them with their own bodies. "Captain," she said, "put me down near that creature." "Gina, no." "Trust me," she said. And for the first time in her life, her voice carried the authority of someone who expected to be obeyed. Captain Lee hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." 5. Minutes later, Gina stood alone on the surface of New Busan, facing a creature the size of a skyscraper. The devourer looked like living darkness with teeth and claws made of crystallized fear. Behind the monster, 30 people huddled together. Men, women, children, all waiting to die. The devourer sensed Gina and turned toward her. It expected to feed on her terror, to grow stronger from her fear. Instead, it found something it had never encountered before. Gina was not afraid. She was angry. The warm energy in her chest exploded outward like a star being born. Reality twisted. Around her small form as power that had been sealed for millennia finally awakened. For the first time in its existence, the devourer felt something new. It felt fear, and it began to run. The transformation was beautiful and terrible to see. Gina's small body began to glow with soft, white light. The air around her shimmered like heat waves, but the temperature was dropping rapidly. The ground beneath her feet cracked and reformed, as if reality itself was being rewritten. The building-sized devourer stopped its advance toward the trapped civilians. Its crystallized fear teeth chattered. Its dark form began to shrink back on itself. "Impossible," it said in a voice like breaking glass. "The first ones are gone. They chose exile. They chose weakness." Gina stepped forward. With each step, her power grew stronger. The light around her brightened until it was hard to look at directly. "We did not choose weakness," she said. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, just like the creatures had on the alien ship. "We chose wisdom." The devourer tried to flee, but Gina was faster. She raised one small hand, and invisible force wrapped around the monster like chains. It struggled and roared, but could not break free. "You feed on fear," Gina said. "But what happens when someone is not afraid of you?" She began to walk toward the creature. With each step, it grew smaller. The crystallized fear that made up its teeth and claws began to crack and fall away. What happens when someone is stronger than you? By the time Gina reached the devourer, it was no bigger than a normal person. Its dark form trembled like a frightened animal. "Please," it whispered. "I was only following my nature. I was made to consume fear." "Then I will give you a new nature," Gina said. She placed her hand on the creature's shrinking form. Light flowed between them. The devourer's darkness began to change, becoming silver instead of black. "From now on, you will protect instead of destroy. You will feed on courage instead of fear. You will guard the innocent instead of hunting them." The transformation completed, the former devourer bowed its silver head. "It will be as you command, First One." "I am not a First One," Gina said. "I am just someone who wants to protect people." But, even as she spoke, she could feel her power reaching out across the planet. Every other devourer suddenly stopped what it was doing. They felt the presence of something they had only heard about in their creator's oldest files. One by one, they began to flee toward their ships in orbit. The crew of Soul's Pride watched in amazement as monsters that could not be killed by any weapon ran away from one small human girl. "How is this possible?" Taemin whispered. Captain Lee thought about the ancient creature in their cargo bay, about the stories of beings called the small gods, about power that could reshape reality itself. "I think," he said slowly, "we have been carrying a legend and did not know it." Down on the planet's surface, Gina felt her transformation beginning to fade. The light around her dimmed. The power flowed back into her chest, settling into its familiar warm glow. She was herself again. Small, young, tired, but everything had changed. The 30 people she had saved approached her carefully. They had seen her power, had watched her transform a monster with a touch. To them, she was no longer human. She was something divine. "Thank you," whispered an old woman holding a small child. "Thank you, Guardian." "I am not a guardian," Gina said. "I am just Gina." But the woman shook her head. "You are the little guardian, the one who came when we needed her most." Word of what happened spread quickly. Within hours, every person on New Busan knew the story. A small human girl had faced the monsters and sent them running. She had saved them all with power beyond understanding. When the hegemony fleet detected readings they could not explain, they immediately jumped to hyperspace. Their commanders sent urgent messages to their high command. "Retreat immediately. The humans have awakened something ancient." The news traveled through galactic communication networks at the speed of light. Every species that had racial memories of the small gods felt a chill of recognition. The beings they thought were gone forever had returned. Aboard Soul's Pride, Gina sat in the cargo bay with her teacher. The ancient creature was pleased but also worried. "You did well," it said. "You used power to protect instead of destroy. You showed mercy to an enemy. Your ancestors would be proud." "But," Gina asked, sensing there was more. "But you have revealed yourself to the galaxy. Every government, every military, every ancient enemy now knows that the Primarchs have returned. Your life will never be simple again." "I know," Gina said, "but I could not let those people die." "No, you could not. This is why your kind were called the small gods. You had the power to rule the galaxy, but you chose to serve it instead." Captain Lee entered the cargo bay. He looked at Gina with new respect and perhaps a little fear. "Galactic Command wants to speak with you," he said. "Every species in the Alliance is demanding answers." "What should I tell them?" Gina asked. "Tell them the truth. That humanity remembers what it once was, that we are still the same people we always were, but we are no longer hiding our true nature." The creature spoke up. "She will not be the only one. Her awakening will call to others. Soon, more humans will discover their heritage." "Is that good or bad?" Captain Lee asked. "That depends on what they choose to do with their power," the creature replied. Over the following days, reports came in from across human space. Strange events were happening. A miner on Asteroid Station 7 had survived a reactor explosion that should have killed him. A farmer on New Earth had made crops grow in poisoned soil. A child on Mars Colony had made broken things repair themselves. The seal was breaking. After thousands of years of hiding, the descendants of the Primarchs were awakening. Some people were afraid. They remembered the old stories about gods and monsters. They worried about what humans might become. But most people felt hope. For the first time in generations, humanity had protectors who could stand against any threat. Gina became the symbol of this new age. The girl who had been mocked for her size was now known across the galaxy as the Little Guardian. Songs were written about her. Children played games pretending to be her, but she never forgot who she really was. When reporters asked her how it felt to be called a goddess, she said, "I am not a goddess. I am Gina Kim from New Soul Colony. I just want to protect people." When military leaders asked her to join their armies, she said, "I will protect anyone who needs protection, but I will not be anyone's weapon." When politicians tried to use her fame for their own purposes, she said, "I serve the innocent, not the powerful." The ancient creature was right. Her life was no longer simple, but it was exactly the life she had always wanted. She was protecting people. She was making a difference. She was proving that being small did not mean being weak. And across the galaxy, other descendants of the Primarchs were awakening to their own power. Some would choose to hide, some would choose to help. A few might choose to harm. But they would all remember the example of Gina Kim, the little girl who faced monsters and made them afraid. The small gods had returned to the galaxy. And this time, they would be ready for whatever darkness came to threaten the innocent. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if they knew that their ancient guardians were watching over them once again. Gina looked out at those stars from the observation deck of Soul's Pride and smiled. She was still small. She was still young. She was still just a girl who wanted to help people. But now she had the power to keep that promise, and she would never let anyone mock the innocent for being small again. Because sometimes the smallest people carry the greatest strength. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous, and sometimes the girl everyone underestimates is exactly the person the galaxy needs most. The legend of the little guardian had begun, and it was only the beginning.